Hello everybody, we're gonna do another English Sunday, but it's been a while since the last time, so what we're gonna do today is we're just gonna chill and relax and play a little bit of Rogue Legacy 2. Yeah, it's been really long since we did one, and I'm sorry if we had any English followers who only wanted to watch the English content. I'm gonna try to do it more regularly again. Especially because I really feel like I should get my, motor, my, what do you call it, articulation skills back up, so I can actually speak English as fast as I can think it. And that would be very nice to be able to, be more, more comfortable speaking a language which you can actually think kind of okay. Okay, so what we're doing is playing New Game Plus, and off stream we actually beat a boss, which we usually don't do, but for New Game Plus I thought like whatever, we already seen the guy who wasn't one of the new bosses, so yeah. Okay, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna probably not buy the set because it seems to be only HP, and we also bought the Drowned armor set off stream, which actually just is like an Arana set. I think it has a little bit of armor, it has a little bit of HP, dexterity, what else does it have? Strength, I think. And yeah, it's kind of, a damage oriented set which you can play on most classes. We also are finished with leveling, well for now at least, the base class, and now we're on the Valkyrie. Yeah, so we're gonna have to see about that. I just finished watching the Google keynote, which was live, I don't know, like 2, 3, 4, 5 days ago. Can't really remember. Yeah, kind of interesting. They kind of have like a new AI meta aggregation network, which can, do a lot of different stuff, and it's kind of impressive. But it does still suffer from, I would call it, modern machine learning, what do you call it, the size matters problem. It's like it's a very very large network with a lot of information in it, but I think that the size is the main reason why it does work so well. It's not really about, it's very efficient to execute, but it's very, I think, convoluted to train in a lot of regards. So the results are very impressive, admittedly, but I still think that we are approaching it steadily, the illusion of real AI, but it's still not there. And they have a new data center in the US. I don't know how big it is, but I mean how easy it is to access it. I think it has 9 exaflops of compute, and of course it begs the questions: are there any safety features regarding to AI safety? Because they have something called the AI kitchen, where you can experiment on oh wait, we already beat the guy here. Yeah, you can experiment on AI features as a user, so they can test them, and they are pretty cool. But I don't know if the AI kitchen is really what will help prevent the the main issues I have with AI safety. It's just more of a, how safe is the content to use for a user. So, for example, does the AI give harmful advice? Like go kill yourself if you're sad or whatever. So, or I don't know, if you want to, cook, I don't know, put on an open flame and then wait 10 hours and go to bed or something. Just unsafe advice. There's plenty of that to be found on the internet. And I think that is one of the issues they want to address with that. It's not really about the safety of their algorithms in regards of, autonomous thinking from the sides of the AI. But yeah, I hope they also have internal structures there, because it would be very unfortunate if a company which, openly really admits that they want to put safety first and they want to help people. So that's the main key point you can take away from the Google I/O video, whatever you want to call it, presentation, is they want to help people. And you want to help people, you also have to prevent a lot of, you know, harm. And they didn't really talk about AI safety at all, which is kind of concerning, I think, because you would think that if you talk so much about safety, you should at least tangentially, you know, talk about that. At least in my opinion, you know. I mean, it would be nice for them to do so, because that would reinforce me that they are on the same side as Elon Musk, you know, thinking about this stuff. I mean, I'm certain somebody's thinking about it, but are they really careful enough? I don't know. We'll see. And yeah, otherwise, you know, a lot of cool new features, some really cool, but you know, in a very early stage, like real-time subtitles for translation, which is a great way to, I think, translate, because if you're a fan of, you know, any show in a language you don't speak, maybe Korean or, I don't know, Japanese, or I don't know, whatever language you speak, you can probably find out pretty quickly that reading subtitles doesn't really hinder your enjoyment of the show all that much. And of course it's not as good as listening to, you know, what the people are saying, but it does still help you quite a bit, especially if you know, if they might have like some added, you know, maybe cultural information there, you know, like not only the translation but also what it could mean in that culture, because sometimes you might not have an equivalent translation in the other language, so you want to have a subtitle which also, you know, tells you, okay, in their culture it's normal to tell you to fuck off when they meet you, it's not impolite, but you still want to keep it as a, you know, not a hi but a fuck off, and so you know it's like culturally related. And yeah, and one great thing I like what they're doing is they're taking a new approach to machine learning and how problem solving is done by the machine, by actually not only giving the information to the machine but the path of problem solving, and that is especially useful for you know, text-based questions and mathematics. Yeah, so there is a lot of stuff there. Yeah, keynotes in general are also interesting because they show how a company wants to be seen by the outside. And yeah, so Google seems to be completely on the we want to help people train, which is great, because actually I think if you think about Google, you might think about it, them helping people, but you might also have some safety concerns, you know, like, is my data safe, whatever. And they put a huge focus on these two questions. Of course, they also showed their new hardware. You know, the Pixel 6, I think, was the first smartphone using their Tensor SoC, yeah, so system on a chip. So they also have a, you know, custom hardware, not only when it comes to the outside but also to the inside, and you know, the processing part of the machine. I can't speak a lot about it, but it's always good to have AI, you know, augmentation on your devices, because most features people will be using, like, you know, removing parts of the image, whatever, or I don't know, translation, question answering, whatever. It will use AI features which will be optimized for tensor operations because of the nature of current machine learning algorithms. Yeah, and they always talk about it like it's the base future. I mean, it's for the near foreseeable future for end users. That will probably be the choice we will use because it's very successful. The question is, will that be the best take on AI we have so far? You know, would it be the last say we have? Will it be based on tensor operations, or will we find better physical representations in the hardware? I don't know. It's going to be kind of it would be kind of unlikely, if, just statistically speaking, if we already found the perfect match, because we can already glimpse at what the advantages and disadvantages are, and I think some disadvantages are just so glaringly obvious that even if we reach a satisfactory implementation of general AI, there might still be better ways to do so. But I'm pretty sure we will get very, very impressive results nonetheless in a lot of fields due to that. And yeah, Google, I think, I don't know if they still have their open source approach they had a year ago, but you can usually just look up what they're doing, and it's pretty well written papers usually, and you can just, you know, look how it works if you really care. which of course opens them up to competition, because you can just basically copy their approach, which is something which is really cool in machine learning, because it's kind of it's like they're there to of course fulfill their goal of helping people in the first place, because I think the founders of Google definitely don't give a shit about money that much anymore. They just want to be profitable so they can do more cool stuff with it, because you need money to get people to work on cool stuff. But I think they overall really still have a financial interest in opening up the source space, because if every company that works in that field is open sourcing their code, you can look what kinds of companies are those. For example, there's Facebook, Google. I don't know, these two at least I can think of the head, which openly release their code to the user base. And it might seem like they're being pretty, helpful and not very self-centered by doing that. But the truth is, they are in the position to massively increase their gains if they should ever get a working AI into their systems, because they don't really need they don't really care that much about inventing and selling the AI, but they are going to sell the services, and they're in a premium position to use them. So for them it's very beneficial if they can collaborate on the part that it's not really crucial from a financial perspective, because the internals of Google don't really matter. It's just what Google can do with these internals. Yeah, so it was a fun keynote. I don't know how I should feel about most attendants not wearing a mask, but that's whatever you want to do. I mean, it's a bit weird to talk about COVID and how they helped find people places to vaccinate, and then talk about how they're saving lives, and then the people who attend their show just all are ignoring the ongoing pandemic. I don't know, it's just to me that sends a mixed message, because you would expect an employer that really cares about society and health to actually still enforce mask rules on at least for large gatherings such as these. Okay, so we got the Pearl key. I don't remember which gate it opens though, so yeah, gonna find out pretty soon. Is the Onyx key? Okay, Pearl, it makes sense, it looks like Onyx. Yeah, and I don't know, it's always fun to have these public demonstrations, but they're always very simplistic and very focused on the positives. And that's why I really prefer talks where you also talk about challenges. And when you hear Elon Musk talk, of course Google alluded to the fact that it's going to take a lot of work, and they're just making bounds towards the right direction. And that's nice to admit that, of course, because it's fucking obvious. But when you listen to Elon Musk talk, it's of course it's not as going to be as I mean, the keynote is not the part where they talk about challenges, but I always like if the challenges get a little bit of mentioning in detail, especially the AI safety part, because when you're launching such large scale never seen before compute heavy new centers, it does beg the question why they would not mention that. Yeah, and also their goal is to get information out and be publicly available. But of course the question also is which information should not be publicly available, for safety reasons. For example, you wouldn't want to have extensive access to bomb manuals or whatever, or how to 3D print my weapon or whatever. There's information where you should definitely draw a line between what is okay to be available and what should not be okay. And we're dead, by the way, because there's no way we're gonna dodge the attack while we're under the spikes. Yeah, but it's always fun, it's always a good fun time. And I'm of course interested in the earbuds Pro, because they're basically how do you call them? The AirPods Pro, just like the Google variant. and they have a custom sound chip. They have, you know, neural network algorithms doing the noise cancelling. So if that, and they have even, you know, a sound leakage compensation or whatever, or, you know, if your ear is not filled in, and especially they have an easy sync feature, because one of the things I really hate about AirPods on an Android device is that they really prefer syncing to an iPhone. And so my girlfriend has an iPhone, I have an Android, and the AirPods will always default to the iPhone, no matter who used them last, and that's so annoying. It's so annoying because you want you just want to use them, and then you're, oh shit, again the iPhone. Yeah, so probably we're debating a second pair anyway. So the plan was to buy the newest generation of whatever the best technology will offer. And it might turn out we were just gonna maybe opt for an Android-based and an iOS-based device. Also, I heard that maybe, it's a rumor I think, that iOS might be converting to USB-C, which would be great because then we could finally buy stuff that will fit both ecosystems. Yeah, so I don't know, it's gonna be pretty cool. Maybe. I don't really care a lot about mobile phones. I just want to listen to music and have a device that is actually able to run a single software. Because for the past 10 years or so, I had the first Google Nexus phone, and it became extremely slow. It was like unusable by the time I exchanged it for the old Android phone of my girlfriend. And the plan actually was to buy a new iPhone. I was like, hey, I want to buy an iPhone. Why? Because the camera was great at the time, and you know, it just seemed like a good fit for whatever I wanted to do with it. But it turns out that the iPhone was a better fit for my girlfriend, so I just gave it to her and took her Android. Yeah, so basically that's how I bought an iPhone for me and gave it away like the day I got it. I didn't even test it. It wasn't like, oh shit, this sucks. Here, can I have your old Android? It was more like, yeah, ahead of time. It was like, it's actually kind of stupid that I buy it. I'm not a heavy user. Investing so much money into a phone for me is a complete waste. All I do is read Twitch chat and listen to music while I go out jogging, whatever. So yeah, was a pretty easy choice to not take it for myself. Okay, what we're gonna do here is take a little bit of armor and check what we have. We have nothing, that's great. If you don't know, which you probably don't because we usually stream in German, I almost named my channel Autopilot Gaming because I'm so often not playing the game actively. I'm just, you know, taking the absolute minimum amount of input I can to move the character. In some games that's more than enough to make progress. But we'll never do it when we are really in single player games that are, you know, story focused or whatever. It's mostly when we're playing games where like New Game Plus, or we already, you know, Genshin maybe, we're just doing dailies. Yeah, so especially when we talk about shit. So whenever I don't talk about shit, you can assume that I'm probably either listening to something on my TV or something, or that we're completely focused on the game. At least partially, you know. In my brain I might still think about other stuff, but when I don't talk about other stuff, it's more unlikely. Yeah, that is the dual blades from the assassin, and we got a blessing of strength. I still don't know how much strength you gain, if it's actually worth just taking it for the you know, strength bonus. Yeah, but it's really nice to play a class and a spell for a longer period of time because it makes you a little bit more adept at their abilities. And you don't have to, you know, think about everything you're doing. Insane how much HP they have. I really can't imagine how hard the game will scale in New Game Plus Plus, because if it should scale as much as in New Game Plus 1, that would be very stupid from the developers, because I'm gonna tell you why. Assume we took like maybe 50 hours to beat the game the first time. Maybe we only took 40 or whatever, but we took quite a while to beat it. And if we would, the game would assume we take another 40 hours to beat New Game Plus. That would be ridiculous, you know, because the game is, I think, is laid out for a New Game Plus 100 or whatever, in theory. And yeah, that would be pretty weird. I really hope it's not the way the game works and we can easily beat New Game Plus Plus, but it might be very, very stupid to if we have to grind. If we ever have the feeling we need just to grind for, I don't know, 5 hours to get the stats we need to actually beat the game, I might probably just quit the game at that point. Yeah, so I really hope they have a less, you know, steep progression curve when it comes to getting to New Game Plus Plus. Yeah, but we'll see. We might just do 0 damage in New Game Plus Plus, and then I might just, you know, say, fuck it, I'm not gonna, you know, even if I get I don't know, a lot of gold or whatever, I will probably just say, okay, it was nice. You know, it's nice to play the game, but I don't want to be starting at 0 again, or I can just start a new game. Because to be fair, the only thing that really changes in New Game Plus Plus from a gameplay perspective is that you have more classes and more, you know, mobility options. So yeah, and you're more free in choosing your own path because you already have all the, you know, basically, you know, your gear is, you know, is kept between the different runs. So yeah, and that's the main difference. And what really changes for the player is actually just, you know, how much choice they have when it comes to runes and equipment, and how many, you know, jumps and mobility options you have. So it doesn't really change the gameplay all that much. And of course the modifiers are there to, you know, alleviate a little bit of that, but I don't know, they really keep the things so fresh in a game which has a little bit of it's not really an issue, it's just like a design thing they went for. They went for a game where there is very little inter-run variability when it comes to you know, what you can do during a run. It doesn't really feel that different if you don't change the classes or the spells you're using. You're mostly just playing the same you know, the same run over and over with randomized enemies and layouts, but that doesn't really change the game. It's not like Isaac where, you know, in one run you have like the, you know, Mom's Knife, and the next run you have Brimstone, or you know, you have different stuff, you know, that really feels different to use. And here is really, you know, very samey. There's not a lot of transformative stuff. The artifacts are very simplistic. There's not a lot of, you know, I really hate this area. Did I tell that? That really annoying. It's incredibly annoying. Yeah, so I really hope that that it don't make me grind too long, because as long there is meta and there is a meta progression which I can, you know, kind of feel, you know, I can at least spend money or whatever and get the feeling I'm getting stronger. The progression for the sake of progression is never something I really care about. I just want to have good moment-to-moment gameplay, which is fine in this game. It's really a fun game, but it's very far from being, you know, as, you know, infinitely replayable as in Binding of Isaac. In theory, is, you know, if you play Isaac for, I don't know, 1,000 hours, you're gonna have a very good time. If you play this game for 1,000 hours, I'm probably sure you're gonna be very good at fighting the enemies. But if the progression just linearly, you know, increases their HP, you will not really have a different experience. It will probably just be as hard as the 3rd or 4th time around, you know. The first time is definitely harder, but the 2nd or 3rd time, you know, it gets easier and easier, you know, the patterns. Even if they break up the monotony by adding new enemies or whatever, or variations, it won't change that much, you know, it's not like a whole new game. And in Isaac, you always have this feeling of playing a casino, and yeah, gambling is a huge part of roguelikes, and I mean, not, you know, gambling in the slot machines especially, but gambling, you know, in relation to making decisions which can, you know, impact your future, the future of your run. What the fuck is this thing? Yeah, this is definitely where we die. The fuck was the big projectile? Yeah, so yeah, I really like games where you can make decisions, and the biggest decision you make in this game is in what order you really upgrade your stuff. and which class you choose. And these decisions are not random. You're not forced to make them. You can, you can... That's really terrible. It actually sounds fucking really, really bad. Yeah, but the point is you really don't have a lot of variability there, it's just like it's not like you're gonna have so much fun making big decisions in this game. It's not like FTL where you have to go to the nodes, which decision will probably make my ship stronger, Here this is like, what is my biggest gripe here with this skill tree? It's basically just, it's just moving around stats on a very, very small level. There's hardly anything here that is really transformative in terms of gameplay. And I mean, yeah, sure, you unlock the classes. These are the transformative parts, but most of the skills are basically just do 1% here, 2% there, more damage, a little bit more defense. But it's nothing really, fun. It's not fun, It's just okay to level them. You feel like, and that's the thing. I feel like the game is like an endless grind at that point. When you don't have new content to unlock, it just feels like you're just, these are not really interesting to level. They could actually not exist, and the game would be almost the same feeling. They are just there to be leveled. They're not really there to be fun. And that is one thing I already didn't like about the first game. It's just like you have this feeling of, visual progression with your mana, but the felt progression is there. You get stronger, obviously, but it gets alleviated by the dynamic scaling in, well, not dynamic, by the curve in the game. So you're basically always progressing as far as you can, getting stronger, progressing further, but it doesn't feel like, you're really getting something meaty that really makes you better. It doesn't feel like if you had all this shit here, could you go as far as you can? Yeah, you probably wouldn't be really playing any different. You would just play the same way, and the only reason you might succeed later on is just because you have 1 point more in HP and 1 point more in damage, so yeah. Speaking of 1 point more, we should probably level something. I'm really not sure what we want to have. I think we really lack a lot of armor. We didn't level it at all, and yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure if I'm that motivated even for. I want to at least finish, I think, New Game Plus, because we're pretty close to finishing it. But I'm really not sold on the idea of playing New Game Plus Plus, just because there is this artificial difficulty. The difficulty of the game is not my issue. It's not like a game where I would say like, oh my god, if I had a modifier which makes the game harder, it would be so much more fun. Because if I want to do that, actually I can just go into house rules, turn them on, and just why would I just not use these? New Game Plus is basically an enemy health and damage slider, and then you have these burdens, and the burdens themselves are pretty, they're there, but I just don't find that motivating. It's like, hey, you can progress to make the game harder, but it's not, like it gets harder in probably a fun way. It's just like, maybe it just gets annoying. Yeah, so I don't know, it's just, there's not, yeah, I know what I want to say. I want to say, because I'm not really making, I'm not really coming to an end with this argument. The main point I want to make is, where in other roguelikes you unlock a lot of cool stuff you can actually use and interface with, in Rogue Legacy you mostly unlock stuff that just makes either the game harder on a stat from a stats perspective, or you unlock something which is actually just completely meaningless in a way that it doesn't even maybe affect your current run at all. So yeah, for example, what would that be? The burn with the first boss is cool, you can swap it up, you get, a new boss you can select, that's nice. But overall, once you're past that boss, it doesn't do anything for you, it's just like, okay, it's a nice burden to have, but it doesn't really, it doesn't really make the game feel that different. It's new content, yeah, but it's not a new way to play the game. While other roguelikes definitely have things that are new ways to play the game, like classes in this game. But the classes in this game, are the only thing that really feel like that. You know, you don't really unlock new artifacts. You don't know. It's just, you know, it doesn't change enough in the game. The room layout doesn't change. You don't get new, I don't know, new stuff in the game. You know, new mechanics or whatever. It's just like, it's a very different type of roguelike. It's a bit like Hades. You know, Hades at least has a little bit more intra-run variety, because you can think about all the stuff you can get from the gods, you know, during the run, but the weapons will still be the main, you know, the main deciding factor to what you can actually do and what you can't do. And in this game, I feel it's even worse than in Hades, because they actually didn't, you know, they had such an easy way to do it too. And the way would have been to add more randomization to your character, and randomization during your character's life, you know? Like, what do I mean by that? Well, all the stats, for example, when you get Lady Emily 7 and then you get Lady Emily 8, they don't have any continuity, you know? It's not like Lady Emily 8 is gonna have traits which Lady Emily 6 had, which you can tell, you know? Maybe Emily 6 had a hero complex as well. I don't know. I don't remember. But the game also doesn't tell me that. So I would have wished for, you know, these genetics modifications to really make every character feel unique. And they really didn't build at all on their, you know, premise, you know, which was that you have these, you know, hairs, which should usually feel different when you know, when you get them. You know, they should feel like they're offspring of each other, and their lineage should be, you know, felt when you play them. But they didn't do anything there. I think that is a very big weakness of the game, and definitely my most, you know, my biggest criticism, which is not actually a criticism in context of playing the game for one, you know, playthrough, but more of a criticism of what I would have wished the new changes are. You know, they did a lot of changes that are very great, you know, when it comes to combat, art style, fluidity, whatever. You know, there's a lot of cool stuff there, but when it comes to actually, you know, making progress when it comes to the core gameplay loop, and, you know, the idea of the game, which sets it apart from other games, they really did nothing there. It's like, it's basically Rogue Legacy 1. It's like Rogue Legacy 1.5 when it comes to game design, you know? And that's not bad, because if you look at Call of Duty, of course, there, you know, you have Call of Duty for Call of Duty reasons, you have X game for X reasons. But it's really sad, because I think that they, unlike Call of Duty, they are not at a point where they can say, what we did was perfect, you know, we don't need anything new. We just can add new stuff, which is almost, you know, it's just a little flavor added to the formula, but it's not really reinventing the formula. But I think they really should have gone with reinventing the formula. You know, they really should have tried to keep what's good about it, and, you know, go all in, you know, go all in, try new stuff, be creative. They were in early access, so if it would have sucked, people would have said, yeah, sure, it fucking sucks, don't. Oh wait, we can't fucking heal, right? Oh yeah, this run is already over. Unfortunately. Yeah, so I really would have hoped they had gone a different route there. It's sad, but what can we do? We are just players, and we're not the devs. If we want to have a game which probably makes more of that mechanic, we should just probably make our own game at that point. But it would be cool, you know, because I think they got kind of scared. Now that's maybe a weird thing to say, but I think it's a game made by two brothers and probably more people by now. I mean, at least I would assume it's made by more than two people. I don't know if Rogue Legacy 1 probably was also made by more than two people, but now there should be significantly more people involved, because they had the, you know, economic resources to actually pay them, I guess. And the reason why I think that they might have played it safer with this one is because they didn't find a lot of success with their second game, which was not Rogue Legacy 2, but Full Metal Furies. which I played together with my girlfriend in co-op. So, well, I played at least 60% of it, so we finished it once without knowing all the puzzle stuff. And I think they didn't. They felt like they were not successful with that game. You know, it wasn't. They thought like, yeah, we're an established brand. Rogue Legacy was such a hit. Everybody liked it. And then they brought out Full Metal Furies, and most people were like, yeah, it's kind of nice, but it's not perfect. And I also was like expecting, you know, some kind of brilliant idea, some brilliant twist, like, you know, the trade mechanic or whatever. And maybe they went back to Rogue Legacy 2 thinking like, okay, if we really change a lot, will people even care about our game? They just like Rogue Legacy, so let's just give them Rogue Legacy again. And I think they were maybe scared about changing the fundamental design. I mean, it's literally the same game, just with stuff tacked onto it, you know, nothing is kind of missing. It's not really that different, you know. And it's at the same time, it's a good thing because the game was fun. But it's also kind of disappointing because we were expecting, you know, a little bit more, you know, not more stuff, but different stuff too, you know, that they really evolve. And like Miyazaki, for example, when Miyazaki did Dark Souls 1, it was like, yeah, I know, it's kind of Demon Souls, but it was like, for context, I played Demon Souls back on PlayStation 3 as an Asia import, which thankfully was completely voiced in English and English text, and even had a little English tutorial sheet which told you more than the tutorials in the game, which was kind of weird. But anyway, Demon Souls was kind of you know, let's say it was the worst, not worst, but it was a very samey version of Dark Souls. And then Dark Souls 2 was very samey, but you know, I know you will say, oh my god, the hitboxes and the details, they're so different. You can't really say it's the same game, but it is the same game. It is the same game just because the level structure and, you know, the stuff is worse or better in other games. You can say Dark Souls 1, 2 and 3 are very, very much the same. Demon Souls is very much the same. And what Miyazaki basically does is, whenever he doesn't want to do the same stuff, he just gives it a new name. Well, let's... yeah, it gives it a new name. Let's talk about Bloodborne, for example. It made a new IP, probably also because he didn't want to make it. He wanted to make something cool and could use Sony's money, and he didn't want to use Dark Souls because he knew, you know, because he knew basically that the developers would be. Yeah, because he knew that it would be very hard to find a game with a new IP. So he was like, yeah, that's cool. You want to give me money even though I fucked you over with, you know, Dark Souls? Because what Miyazaki basically did was like, you know, hey Sony, very nice that you own Demon Souls. Thank you for your money. And now I'm going to make the same game and give it a different name. And it's not going to be a PlayStation exclusive. So that's what basically Miyazaki did. So he did something which Sony probably did not like at all, because Sony was like hoping, yeah, sure, maybe we'll get a Demon Souls 2 or whatever. And then he went back to them and they said, yeah, sure, why not make a new, you know, exclusive IP, even though you already have proven to us that you probably are just going to take the IP, give it a different name and re-release it anyway. So that shows how much Sony actually cared about the IP, because they were willing to give the person money again, who of course they made money with. Sure, of course Demon Souls was not like the worst selling game of all times, but probably a lot less well selling than Dark Souls. So it's like they gave you money to make a better game, which wasn't exclusive. So it was kind of weird. But then again, when Bloodborne came out, it was a huge success. It's still probably to date one of Miyazaki's best games, in my opinion, and the opinion I think of many other people too. And it's still exclusive to PlayStation to this date, but I would expect it to come to PC in the very near future, to, you know, bridge the gap between whatever Elden Ring and then Miyazaki's next game is going to be. And yeah, what I wanted to make, the point I wanted to make is that Miyazaki, unlike the Rogue Legacy developers, kind of, you know, tries different stuff. He has the balls to really change up the basics, but keep the same core principle. So for Miyazaki, a lot of people, when they see Demon Souls or, you know, Dark Souls, they think, yeah, sure, that the different weapons, armor types or whatever, they must be a core part of the game. You know, if you don't have that, you don't have a Souls-like. And Miyazaki then with Sekiro showed that for him, he can take away parts of his formula and still make a game which feels like one of those games. Albeit different, of course, but it felt, you know, it felt like a Souls game. And yeah, I would say that Miyazaki overall is just a very cool dude in that regard, because he has the balls really to change up his own style, but at the same time can go back to the same style in the next game. For example, he did Bloodborne, Dark Souls 3, Sekiro, Elden Ring. You know, it's always an alternation between very new stuff and kind of the old formula, which has been proven to incorporate most of the stuff. And what I'm kind of, you know, looking for is like a game from Miyazaki which actually brings together different playstyles, and which is why I'm kind of disappointed in Elden Ring, besides the fact that it's way too easy and there are a lot of issues that lead to that difficulty problem, and a lot of design bugs and badly designed systems. It's just it's worst game by far. It's like I mean, you could say Dark Souls 2 would probably take the spot if I played it today. That might be true, but considering when it came out, I mean, it's the worst game he has made so far. Probably not for all players. That is something I have to admit, because some players are kind of, you know, bad at Souls games, and Elden Ring is probably the game which will be the most accessible for a lot of people due to the extreme imbalances in builds and the different playstyles which you can adapt, from playing the game yourself to just watching other people or your AI companion play the game. But that aside, I mean, watching your AI companion play the game is actually kind of difficult, because you still have to dodge a lot of attacks and you probably are going to do less damage. So you can make it very easy. The easy mode is basically in the game. But Souls games were never about being difficult, in my opinion. They were never really hard, like no Souls game to date, at least in non-New Game Plus setting, was really difficult. But Elden Ring really ruined the difficulty curve in a substantial way, which really led to me enjoying the second half of the game significantly less than the first half, because it really felt like okay, I have to admit, the half in my case is also Radahn, is also in the second half for me, because we did Radahn after we almost beat the entire rest of the game, because we always thought that these NPCs, you know, the ghosts, they would actually show up as a, you know, corporeal body and not a ghost, like, you know, the other two NPCs here did, like Alexander and I don't know who the fuck the other guy was. But yeah, so I was really hoping for them to show up, and I was like, yeah, but we're only gonna do Radahn when everybody's there, you know. I wanted to have the full party, didn't want to miss any lore or whatever. And the problem was just that we then went back to Radahn when we were so over leveled for Radahn that it was a complete joke, and everything afterwards was also a complete joke. And it really ruined the entire fight for me. And I didn't want to ruin it for me, you know. You know, I even set some rules for myself to make it, you know, a little bit more challenging. Like, for example, after Melania, I just said like, okay, we're gonna cosplay Melania in a weapon, no matter if it's good or bad. You know, we just went like all in on her trip, and we said fuck the gameplay. And before that, we said in general we are not gonna abuse jumping attacks, because jumping attacks are fucking broken in the game. And we figured all of that out, you know, blindly. We didn't watch anybody else play. We didn't read any reviews, whatever. We weren't biased while doing all that. And yeah, so that was so disappointing that then, like, I don't know, the entire areas were wasted. You know, it's like when in Rogue Legacy you're on a farming run, and the game becomes really, really easy. But you don't get any reward afterwards. You don't get anything for it. You don't get any upgrade materials. You don't get any souls. Everything is just like, you know, here's content, but the content is actually just basically a waste of time, especially considering that you can get locked into an ending which basically makes all of the other ending storylines useless, and very annoyingly so, because I really didn't want to have the ending we got, because I just tried to 100% any storyline I found, and little did I know that the chaos ending would be hard locking us into the chaos ending. Okay, now we can go in here and try the boss, which is kind of difficult. But why not? We kept him for later, and I would assume that we don't stand a chance against him. I would assume he's gonna be way too difficult, because the developers really like HP. But I mean, I think this boss has an insane amount of annoying mechanics. And yeah, we should really we don't know, I think we fought him like 2 times or whatever. He might even spawn a second version of himself, you know, like a mimic tier or whatever. Yeah, how do you like this mechanic? It's kind of weird, but we have a, you know, pogo super attack here. Okay, I'm expecting a flurry of fireballs here. Which makes this class very good against him, I would assume. That was very bad. Yeah, Rogue Legacy 2 is definitely a more difficult game than Elden Ring if you want to play it on a, you know, non-grindy way, in a non-too grindy way. Of course, you can make it kind of easy by grinding, but in general, I think this. Oh my god, it's so huge! I think this game is way, 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 way harder than Elden Ring is. Yeah, so it's a much more difficult game, definitely. And no, I don't mean if you just grind, you know, if you just play the game, at some point you're gonna be so strong, it doesn't fucking matter what the enemies do. You can make it very, very easy, but on a base level, you know, for first trying stuff in this game, it is so much more challenging, you know, it's so much more challenging than in Elden Ring. In Elden Ring, you can first try like 80% of the bosses pretty easily, if you're good at Souls games. And this game, if you're good at, you know, platforming and whatever, you really would have to play very, very slowly to learn every pattern before you try to attack the boss. You can't just, you know, do the same thing over and over and expect it to work. What the fuck? So we're getting a little bit of lore here. And this is also okay. That's interesting. Yeah, my point is the lore in the game is there is no voiceover. There's, you know, it's just reading, and it's not the good reading. You know, sometimes the key to a good storytelling when you don't want to have voiceovers is just to put a little bit of text there. You know, you don't need fucking 10,000 lines of, you know, it doesn't have to be a book, you know, the game doesn't have to contain the amount of words the book has. And this game definitely has the problem that it tries to be a book, and that is so uncompelling to me. I have no idea what the story is, because whenever I see, like, you know, a book in a video game, I'm like, okay, I could just fucking read a book if I want to read a book. In Elden Ring, for example, it doesn't, you know, cram it in your face. You don't have a book lying around everywhere. I think this is the worst kind of storytelling, is just to put a fucking book somewhere. You know, this, for example. This is like, who gives a fuck, you know? If you don't want to put an event, you know, maybe put a guy there that attacks you and then he talks to you or whatever. Or, you know, something cool, you know, where people are like, yeah, sure, I'm engaged. Or I just can, you know, I can just feel the story by walking around. But the game actually is just like very, very weirdly focused on putting a wall of text in your face. Oh yeah, cool feature I didn't know about, which was coming to Google Docs, also AI based of course. All these cool new features are results of natural language processing, and the cool feature is a TLDR for Google Documents. So it's meant in it's for a business application. For example, you have a meeting, you have, I don't know, 20 pages of documents you should be reading beforehand, and Google Documents now supports you know, summary function, which should try to summarize your document. And I was like, you know, that is a great feature, but isn't that hella risky? You know, you're basically trusting Google, the algorithm, to find the important stuff in your paper. So it might be very dangerous to, you know, blindly rely on that feature when it's still pretty new, because you never know if in the end you're gonna miss the key points which are actually important for the meeting you're gonna go to. I mean, you might figure it out by reading the TLDR, but it's really basically I'm too lazy to do my homework, and if somebody gives you a document with 25 pages and you should be informed about them, then you should probably read them, you know. It's not like it's more of a, you know, nice maybe for bosses to go over documents. They don't need to be in the know of all the, you know, stuff. But if you're really the guy who should be reading this you know, the document, you should probably just go and read it. In my opinion, you know. So it's a cool feature for the people who are not really directly involved, and it might even, you know, give for teams which are not directly, you know, working with the content. It might give a good insight into what another team is going to do beforehand. So instead of just, you know, getting 20 pages of detailed stuff about the stuff you're doing, you could just maybe read TLDRs of a lot of documents, which some people should look into in detail. Because the argument would be, why would you even make a 20-page document if people don't really want to read it? The answer is obviously that not everybody wants to read it, but some should still know what's inside. Yeah, it's a really cool feature, and I think that will increase the amount of time and efficiency in the workflow for many people if the feature is well implemented. Definitely a huge thing. I think for a lot of people who work a lot with documents, and it might even be another, you know, shot in the direction of Microsoft, where Word is admittedly still a pretty basic in terms of, you know, AI functionality, which is probably also one of the reasons why Windows is pretty annoying to use sometimes, because everything Windows tries to do with AI is at the moment pretty simple. And also, you know, the flight simulator and everything they have done there is it's nice that you have, you know, alternatives versions of each other. But I think they could just, you know, collaborate a little bit more, so we don't just get, you know, too pretty cool actually. But this one would for sure make us almost you know, invincible for the foreseeable future. Yeah, so basically I think that collaboration should be key for a lot of things, which would benefit both parties, you know. Yeah, a lot of tech giants like to do a little bit too much in-house compared to what would be possible if you would just collaborate a little bit more. I know they're paying their people whatever, and of course the collaboration should be on fair terms, you know. You should be, you know, you should not be paying for what the other person did. You should at least pay an equal contribution, you know. Yeah, but the problem is often it's more, you know, it's more the greed is in the way. People will mostly not ask the price that it would cost the other tech company. Just do it yourself, you know. You know, it's just even if you say you just do, you give a, you know, a leasing plan where you just, you know, pay a little bit, or do you have to pay for everything up front? Do you have to pay for whatever you do with it? So mostly it's so complicated that you're just gonna say fuck it, we're gonna do it ourselves, and it's sad because we're just wasting time there. A lot of talented people are just gonna do the same task over and over, and yeah, this happens a lot everywhere in the economy. A lot of people are wasting their time doing the same stuff again because the other stuff is unavailable to the public or too expensive, and kind of a waste of human resources, in my opinion. Okay, so what are we doing actually? We're just talking about random shit, and we're not making it. We made progress, amazingly enough. We randomly ended up at the first boss, and then we decided to fight it, and we actually won, which is kind of weird, but yeah, the autopilot sometimes works. Yeah, and by the way, learning the way people solve things, you know, in language, is very likely to work for a machine, because the machine has to use a correlation between the path of solving and the result, instead of just between the question and the result. Because if you have, you know, you add a lot of information if you tell the machine how to solve a problem, because you add basically a guide to the correct answer, which the machine then can learn, and then of course it increases the chance for the machine to actually solve the problem. It's definitely a very logical approach, and the problem with that is, why is the approach very bad when it comes to scalability? Because it really implies that somebody already has solved the problem or a similar problem, and it does not really, you know, it does not really you know, it doesn't, I don't know how you say it in English, it doesn't really, how would you say it? I'm not finding the correct word at the moment. It doesn't really know, it can't be extended very well beyond that, you know, it is very limited. And which is also reflected in the fact that I think these math questions are pretty simple, and only 50% are answered correctly at the moment, which is amazing that it's possible at all. But 50% is basically useless, you know, for questions which every human on Earth probably can, to some degree, answer or be able to answer. Like, you know, Bobby has 2 balloons, and Chloe comes by and gives him 2 balloons, but brings 2 additional balloons, and then steps on one, so Bobby has 1 less. And how many balloons does Bobby have, you know? So you know, simple stuff like that. And I mean, it's something that every human that is, you know, not ill or whatever can probably answer, you know, to some degree. Yeah, and to hit a 50% quota on that is like, yeah, it's not that impressive. But of course, if you could hit 50% on a very complicated problem, you know, that would be impressive. You know, for example, you could hit 50% of a very convoluted mathematical problem, you know, with a lot of equations or whatever. You would expect that to be very, very impressive, because there are a lot of more, you know, steps involved, and it's a lot more difficult. But if you could teach those to a machine, have 50% success rate, that would be amazing, because you could just check both of them, you know. If a human would take his entire life to do the one task, and you can teach the machine to do the task correctly in 50% of the time, and it's much faster to just go over the task if it's correct or not, that would be already a cool, you know, additional tool for problem solving, or at least inspiration. A lot of things, you know, a lot of things that the algorithm at the moment can do relate to information we give them. So it doesn't really create novel information, but it creates novel combinations of information. So for example, you can go there and say, hey, I wanna, you know, I wanna grow plants in my garden. What are the steps I would need to take to grow plants in my garden? And then what the algorithm can do is, okay, to grow plants you need to do this, 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 and this, and this, and this, and then you can get, you know, a rough overview of what other people would have done when they Google for growing a garden or whatever, you know. And that's great. It's a cool feature, but it doesn't really add new information. It just adds, you know, combinations of information. Now you could argue that every information we have is a combination of information, and that the illusion is that the information is not the same information, but it's just, you know, processed basic information. So for example, if you look at a human body, that the genome is just like a basic combination of a lot of different things, which inherently inherently already existed in some form. Now, this is a very weird take, because why would I say that? Why would I say that all information already existed? The point is, if we can create information. So we created something that creates information. Did we really create information, or was the creation of the machine that led to the discovery of the information the thing that created the information? You know? So it's basically everything we can discover already discovered, but we don't know we can discover it. So can we discover something that doesn't exist? And the answer for most people probably is no. But doesn't that mean that we really ever learn something new? You know? In our brains, yes, of course. But when you think about it, that even the fact that we learned something in our brains was something that we didn't really learn, because it was something that already was, you know, predestined to be discovered. So information is something very volatile. You know, it's something that's very, very volatile in a way that that it depends on time, if it exists or not. You know, it can, any moment can be lost, but it's not really lost. You know, the potential to be rediscovered is already encoded in the stuff that exists. And if there comes a point in time where the stuff that exists is not able to reconfigure information, for example, create life, or you know, make scientific discoveries or whatever, when that point comes, basically the moment where all information that is there is the information that can be attained. Yeah, that's it's a weird take. Like, say, for example, if you don't know atoms exist, they still exist. You know, if there is something that creates life and there are conditions that creates life, it's basically like the entire knowledge that that life form can then produce is already basically set in motion. It's just a time problem. You know, it's not really an existence problem. And now you could argue that the structures that evolve over time, they hop into existence, but it's not like they really have a novel impact in most cases. You know, for example, now we can be pretty sure there will be an AI that is able to think very complex thoughts, but it will not really, you know, get new stuff that we don't expect out of the world. We will probably see stuff we don't know is there, but it's not really unexpected. You know, for example, if somebody told us that everything we perceive 3D in reality is like 6,000 dimensional, and we don't know shit and we can't perceive it, that would not really be a surprise to the informed person, because it would be like, okay, it's just a possibility which we cannot, you know, deny exists, and it's probably unlikely. It's like, you know, people can always say that my hypothesis is correct until I stand uncorrected. And we can always say that is true, because it's a true statement. Actually, the person who's telling you that he knows the truth, for example, he knows, careful, I'm not a flat earther, so I'm gonna make a flat earther argument to show why some things which we take for granted should not be taken for granted. For example, we could say the earth is round. Okay, sure. That sounds pretty, you know, convincing for a three-dimensional perspective, you know, perceiving human being. But what if we figure out that the Earth actually was flat and we just perceive it at 3 dimensions? You know, what if it is technically flat? You know, and we would never know that's true or not unless we can disprove that the Earth. You know, we can never prove it's actually round. We can just prove maybe that it is. Well, no, actually, you can't. You cannot. The point is, you can't prove either. You can't prove the Earth is round. You can't prove the Earth is flat. You know, you can just make a proof which is, you know, basically approaching a very high likelihood in our minds, but it is based on our perception of reality. All of our physics and all the things, you know, Einstein's relativity theory and whatever, it's all based on, you know, perception, and we always have to say. You know, we have to give credit to the fact that maybe our perception is so limited that we can't even perceive obvious things. You know, maybe it doesn't have any you know, useful interface with survival, for example. If there is no reason in our brain to perceive things which do not increase our likelihood of survival on a, you know, simple level. So if there would, for whatever reason, be easy way to perceive 5 dimensions, and we just don't really have any advantage perceiving these 5 dimensions, we would never perceive the 2 other dimensions via evolution, because evolution doesn't waste our compute on stuff we, you know, can't see. Maybe there was a being that was able to see stuff we can't. Not necessarily, you know, the electromagnetic spectrum we can't see. That is probably a given. That there were times where the perception of, you know, nature was not optimal. For example, maybe green was not perceived very well. Maybe there was somebody, you know, there are a lot of mutations that probably occurred, which gave a, you know, distinct disadvantage to the individual. But I think that there might even have been things we don't really directly think of, you know. Maybe there was a perception of gravity, you know, in our body, you know, not only, you know, like, I mean, there is a perception of gravity in our body via sensor. I mean, you probably feel that you're sitting, whatever, you know, you feel your mass. But maybe there was a perception for gravitational waves or whatever, or as something, you know, very, very useless for us. You know, gravitational waves usually, if there is a, you know, a formation of a black hole, whatever, like billions of light years away, who gives a shit, you know? We don't give a shit. It won't change if the fucking tiger is gonna rip my head off or not. So there might have been such a perception, which is maybe easily implemented. There would be an easy implementation, but we would never know. So there might be a lot of layers of things we cannot measure or perceive instinctively, so we never look for them. So you really have to be careful, because everybody who says that this is the truth is probably lying, because nobody can actually know what the truth is at the moment. You can just say, this is very likely, this is very unlikely. So yeah, and that doesn't mean that I think that the Earth isn't round. It's probably, from our point of view and all of the interactions we had, we can consider it as kind of round. But the thing is that you can't really disprove the flat Earth argument just by saying, look at it, it's round. that would not be sufficient from a scientific point of view. It would just be sufficient from a, you know, logical point of view for most human beings, me included. Yeah, so I don't think that the Earth is actually flat. It's probably the opposite. It's probably even, you know, more dimensional than it is. So not less dimensional. Flat would, you know, it would probably mean 2D. Then you would have to, well, see, there's the problem. Would you say that if information can be stored in 2D, couldn't you represent 3D via 2D? And then you could say that any information we see in the real world actually stems from 2D. And yes, of course, in 2 dimensions you can represent probably any information you know, as long as you have binary information. You can, you know, we've proven that a binary system can represent 3D worlds. I mean, look at this game. It's okay, it's 2-dimensional, unlucky. If we were playing Genshin Impact, we could probably prove that 2D information can lead to 3D worlds. And maybe flat earthers, just some of them took the argument the wrong way. Maybe the argument never was originally, I don't know. I know nothing about the history of flat earthing. So I don't know what the people actually think. But there might be convincing theories which argue that binary flat information can project a 3-dimensional world, you know, or even a 5, 6, 10-dimensional world. So maybe the base really is 2D. I don't fucking know, you know? That is the point. I don't know. I can just say that we perceive a 3D, you know, maybe hologram or whatever, but we perceive as something 3-dimensional. That's what I can say. I can't say that the base is 3D. I can't. And everybody who says the base is 3D, I know it for sure. You must either be, you know, a special human being that is very, very intelligent and can conclude things that we can't, or you're just, you know, all-knowing or whatever. And we already talked about all-knowingness. The person who is all-knowing should know that he doesn't know everything, you know. The fact that you're all, and he would never claim to be all-knowing. Somebody who is all-knowing would always claim he only knows what he knows. Yeah. And if you watch Monogatari, the anime, there are 2 characters. There's one character that claims, I only know what I know, and the other character always claims, I know everything. And you can already tell that one character is absolutely talking trash, because the claim, I know everything, is always wrong. It's inherently wrong as long as there are no, you know, existential logical. As long as logic is logic, the statement will remain wrong. And even if logic is not logic anymore, you could argue that the logic could always revert to logic, which makes the logic wrong. So it's a very complicated line of thought, I think. But it's very simple. Basically, you can't know everything. It's impossible to know that you know everything. It's impossible to, you know, to ever know. So we will never know everything. If somebody asks you, will humans know everything one day? The answer is no. Nobody will ever know everything. Even the person who is, you know, conceited enough to think he knows everything, inherently should know he doesn't know everything. Because if he knows everything, he should also know every possible permutation of logic. And yeah, so it's a very easy question to answer. A lot of these big questions people ask are very simple, straightforward answers when the answer is either yes or no. Yes in theory, no in theory. Yeah, and I'm always a bit, you know, sad when people who are very intelligent fail to answer these questions because they are in there. They just fail these questions, which are obvious because they are so maybe specialized in their field, and they're so, you know, they never have the you know, eagle view. And a lot of smart people don't have the eagle view, and that's because we're humans, you know. The more you're into something, the more you know about that, the less you can know about other things. It's a very limited, you have a very limited capacity in your brain. Elon Musk, for example, has a little bit more capacity than us for such things, but it probably came at a cost of, you know, well, probably emotional and social skills, I would assume, because it does seem like he has a disadvantage in those areas, which is not bad. It's just, you know, it's not magic, you know. Elon Musk's brain is not magic. It's just like it takes a little bit there and here and there and adds it to another place, and then here you go. Which is why I think that people's intelligence is probably very equal, and that's a weird statement because the perception of stupidity is enormous. You know, you can as a human, you're probably aware that there are really stupid people. You're maybe not that aware how much smarter other people are, because it's always harder to judge smartness than it is to judge stupidity. It's very easy to see stupidity because the moment you perceive stupidity, you are smarter than the person you perceive, and that's why it's very easy to perceive. But the point I wanted to make actually is that most people probably have a pretty similar capacity for that is used in their brain. You know, the brain of most people is of equal size and also of equal performance when it comes to, you know, compute, you know, how much energy comes in and what happens. The thing is, the brain itself uses different, you know, metrics to gauge that compute if it's good or bad, because intelligence inherently does not lead to a higher survival rate. You might be confused by that, but for example, if you're like a super smart guy, but you're dumb in one aspect, for example, you can solve any problem beyond the problem of social communication. So what you do is you go somewhere and you tell everybody, hey guys, you're dumb, I know everything. You're probably gonna have a very bad time surviving when you're, you know, people don't like you. It's much harder in this when you're at least not, you know, decoupled from society. Like today, you can just, you know, you can be like that, and you can still get a job that's maybe doesn't even require you to interface with any humans. But in a time where there was no such job, you know, or survival method, it would really be a huge disadvantage. So what humanity probably values a lot, you know, the human brain from the average person, is the ability to be, you know, to understand and interface with people, no matter if what you say is right or wrong. And I'm going to make a point for that. I'm going to try to elaborate on that point. Imagine you're part of a kingdom, okay? And the king is a real fucking douchebag. He's like fucking dumb. But for whatever reason, everybody, you know, likes him. He's just a nice guy, but he's really fucking stupid. But the moment you say something against him, the people who like him are like, okay, we're gonna fucking kill you. You just insulted the nicest dude of all time. We don't give a shit what he thinks. So the moment you don't, you know, adhere to his rules, you have an intrinsic disadvantage to survival because you're gonna get fucked by everybody. So what is better? Are you gonna be smart in a way that says, yeah, sure, I'm gonna believe you, you know, I'm gonna believe in God. Nobody's gonna be able to tell I'm lying because my brain believes it, you know. I believe in God, I believe in the king. The king's word is absolute or whatever. That can be a huge advantage in survival, to be a fucking sheep, you know. And that's why the brain, even if it has the same potential, is often wired in a way that completely, you know, doesn't give a shit if what is not directly correlated to survival is right or wrong. For example, your brain cares a lot if heat is hot or, you know, ice is cold, because you can freeze to death and you can burn to death. So if somebody tells you walk in the fire, it's cold, you're gonna be there, you're full of shit. I'm not gonna walk in the fire. But if the guy tells you, hey, by the way, in the clouds there are people living on there and they were ancestors, you're gonna be like, yeah, sounds kind of cool, man. I can deal with that. I don't give a shit. Doesn't kill me. I can believe whatever doesn't kill me. So that's the way the brain works. I can believe whatever doesn't kill me as long as it gives me a social advantage. And that explains why so many people are prone to misinformation and really dumb, stupid shit. Because their brain is just, that is the way the brain works. Stupidity is actually, I mean, not stupidity, but you know, selective intelligence is actually one of the most beneficial survival skills our brain has developed. Which means people like me are very, very bad at survival in nature, because my brain actually doesn't give a shit about that. So I talk to you, you know, like I talk to normal people in real life. I talk, you know, I don't pretend I'm dumb. I don't pretend I don't want to talk about stuff that is, you know, interesting to me just because I fear that people can understand me. I will try, of course, to make a point so people can understand me if they have questions or whatever. And I will try to use a language which most people can understand. Maybe not here, but when I'm in real life, I'm not going to go to somebody I obviously doesn't know, you know, these, you know, specialized words, whatever. I don't even know what you call them in English. You know, the words which are not maybe part of your language, your daily vocabulary, you know, complicated words which people mostly don't understand or whatever, which require basically some additional knowledge. I will avoid those and try to, you know, simplify the concepts for most parts, and still, I will still not be as successful as somebody who can just, you know, basically be a sheep and say yes to everybody around him. That is probably a much better survival skill in most cases. Saying yes to the stuff that doesn't really matter. You know, I get in trouble a lot arguing with people, not a lot, you know, for example with my girlfriend sometimes. I tend to have very extreme views on things, so sometimes she might be offended by them. Recently she has really not been offended a lot by them, but sometimes, you know, it's very difficult to get a point across which is offending somebody. But I will not back down and say, I don't, you know, I'm not gonna say, yeah, sure, you're right, if I don't believe it, you know. I'm gonna be like handicapping myself by, you know, enforcing my own opinion, and not backing down, even though I know it would be a very easy solution to avoid a lot of conflict. You know, it's very easy to say, ah, no, you're right, I'm wrong, I'm sorry. You know, I can't do that if I'm not wrong and I'm not sorry. So basically sometimes I come across maybe as a bit rude or whatever. But the thing is, I'm always doing it in the hope that I can, you know, first of all, I'm not going against my own principles if it really matters. If you don't matter to me, I might actually do it if I know, you know, the person. I'm never going to see that guy again. I'm not going to convince him that something is right or wrong. But if it's somebody I really like, or I'm going to, you know, spend a lot of time with, I might actually, you know, really care if that they have a, you know, good mindset, because I don't want to be surrounded by people who, you know, think in not dumb ways, but, you know, harmful ways, maybe even, you know. Maybe they have an opinion of me which is not true. And then I want to make sure they understand why my opinion is the way it is, so they can really make an informed decision if they like it or not, you know. Because a lot of differences can also stem from misunderstanding, you know. Often you can get labeled as something which you aren't. And the internet, it's very easy to get labeled as, I don't know, racist or whatever, get cancelled in some way, because people don't really understand what you're arguing for, and they don't really understand that there are very different takes on the same side, you know. You can say, You can be the least racist guy on the internet. You know, you can be the least racist guy on the internet, but still do racist stuff. You know, which you don't conceive as racist. So, and the thing is, if a lot of people don't conceive what you do as racist, then you're not racist, you know, in the way that people perceive you. But the thing is, it doesn't make things that are racist, that you do, less racist, just because a lot of people conceive it that way, you know. What a lot of people think doesn't make right wrong and wrong right, you know. the perception doesn't change the logic. It just changes if the logic is important or not. Which it very much is, you know. It's very important to know what people think and what they don't think. It's very important. Because if you don't know what other people think, you might even say it's the most important thing of all. For example, you can argue a lot that Ukraine and what Putin is doing, you know, Putin is a very bad dude in that moment, whatever. But it doesn't really matter. If you talk to Putin, you want to make sure that you understand what he's saying, where it's coming from, and you want to make sure that you can, you know, at least know how you would talk to somebody like them, because you can't really just go to Putin and say you're a fucking bitch. The best thing would be if you would be dead or whatever. If you do that, it's completely dumb, because you would be dismissive of the perception of Putin, of himself and of his world, you know. His world view is the reality he lives in, no matter what you think the reality of most people is. If most people think that democracy is the best thing ever, it doesn't make democracy the best thing ever. If, you know, and that's the reason why you should always keep an open mind and think about what other people think before you really argue against them. Because steelmanning an an opponent's argument is always the most important thing, you know. If you can't steelman what your opponent is saying, you have no right actually to complain about what they're saying, unless it's so obviously dumb that you can at least, you know, say, okay, it's fucking stupid, no matter if you understand what he's doing or why he's doing or not. But it's really, really difficult to negotiate with somebody if you don't know his perspective. Yeah, so it really depends how much you interact with people, you know. Some people are really good at Dragon. Yeah, some people are really good at, you know, arguing with people while not even know what they're arguing against, you know. Maybe they're on the same side and they wouldn't even notice. I wouldn't be surprised that a lot of people have the same interests, you know, the same goals, for all the different reasons. And then at the end, the communication falls flat when it's about, you know, finding out why the other person has a problem with what you're saying. It's not about what they're saying, it's just about why they don't like what you are saying. Maybe it's something you can agree on that doesn't really matter, you know? Maybe your point is not even conflicting with their point. It's just like there's one difference which makes you think you're on completely the other side of the guy. For example, I think the Ukraine conflict is very complicated. It's a very complicated conflict because it's of course is rooted in Putin's, you know, perception of reality, but the perception is not that wrong, you know. It is a rightful perception to have from his perspective, you know. It is actually that the West is threatening Russia indirectly, you know. It's a realistic thing to think. We are threatening, you know, Putin's way of life, basically. Rightfully so from my perspective, of course, but from his perspective, would you like to be the guy that everybody doesn't like? I think you would not like to be that guy. And the more you know, the agenda from the West pushes the borders against your borders, the more you get you feel threatened, you know. It's not a physical harm, but it's, you know, it's an ideological harm, and that is a very subtle thing that a lot of people don't realize, that Putin is a bad guy, but he has a reason to be a bad guy, which is not entirely rooted outside of our own, you know, actions. Without the West, I'm pretty sure that that the conflict would not have escalated in the way it has. And there are a lot of things like, you know, for example, the reaction of it's all speculation, of course. We don't have the sources. I'm not the president from Ukraine, whatever. But the fact alone that there is a president in Ukraine at the moment which is willing to defend the country at any cost with the means of war is something that is not a given. You know, there might have been a president which says, okay, I surrender immediately. So I don't know if there was a Western agenda to put especially this person into the, you know, at the position he's in at the moment. Could have well been planned, you know. Maybe it is a war we have planned. But then again, of course, we would have put Putin into a trap, you know. We would have won the theoretical war. I don't know. It might have been a, you know, a planned move to get, you know, somebody in that position which is able to defend himself. I mean, I wouldn't say that the West is planned for an all-out assault from, you know, Putin, because I'm pretty sure that nobody would have thought that it would have makes such, you know, huge miscalculations. You know, you can definitely see that whatever Putin is doing is not what he has originally intended, because the reactions to the pretty obvious request from Finland to join the NATO is pretty, you know, it should be pretty obvious to anybody, you know. It's like, oh yeah, sure, I'm so surprised that the countries next to you are afraid that they'll be next. That's so weird. And that they'll probably do exactly what you're afraid of. They're gonna threaten your ideology even more. That's such a weird thing, yeah. Nobody would have ever seen that coming. But actually, Russia is so delusional, you know. The problem is that even though he's rightfully feels threatened by the West, the actions he's taking, because, you know, it's like you can turn back time, you know. And Putin is trying to turn back time. He thinks that he lives in a world where he's just gonna do whatever he fucking wants, and at the end, you know, everybody's gonna be, yeah, that's cool, we don't care. That's just not how it works. If most people want freedom and, you know, happiness, and he doesn't give them freedom and happiness, most people he can't control will not like him. Even though he can, you know, I think he has 80% roughly 80% in Russia support the war or whatever. I mean, that's a number you have to take with a grain of salt, of course, because wherever I read it, I don't remember, it was probably a good source, but not a source that can have a perfect source either. So, you know, it's probably kind of right, I guess, at 80% maybe, but it only works because of manipulation, you know. And if I have one problem with politics in general, not really with you know, the systems themselves, you know, communism, socialism, capitalism, whatever, you know, democracy, all those things, they're great concepts, but they all have, you know, human flaws in their execution. For example, democracy inherently has one big flaw, and the big flaw in democracy is that it's democracy. And that's, now that sounds like I don't like democracy. I in theory like democracy, but in practice I think democracy is just manipulation. It's just a different type of manipulation. It's not a forceful manipulation, it's a logical manipulation. Because if you want to get elected via democracy, not the person with the best arguments and intention wins, but a person that can convince most people that he has the best arguments and intention wins. You know, that part is is the crux of democracy, which is why democracy is inherently only then possible if there is a, let's say, perfectly informed citizen, which doesn't actually even need somebody to, you know, who can actually call any bullshit he hears bullshit. And the same argument can be made for communism. The communism can be a perfect, you know, a perfect way of living if everybody is able to do exactly the same work and receive the exactly same compensation. Then communism would also work. And those both, by the way, are possible in reality. Now we can talk about how that would be possible. It would be possible if people would be super smart in the case of democracy. That would probably mean that there would need to be some change in the human species. So it is not really possible with the current system we have with humans, but it is theoretically possible. Then it would be possible to have, of course, an AI elected democracy, which basically knows the bullshit. So then we would still have the same people. And communism actually doesn't need people to really be different. It just needs the entire world to change. So communism is probably more feasible in the context of probably augmented reality and metaverse stuff, you know. It's not a really, it is, even if you would assume that there's universal global income with no, you know, bells and whistles and everybody can basically get the same stuff, it would not be possible on Earth, because Earth is inherently, I mean, it is not a homogeneous, you know, place to live. Earth is full of different biomes, different, you know, stuff, and it will always be, there will always be a competition for physical stuff in the world. The only way we can ever get a true communism is like if we have a metaverse like the Matrix, where everybody just lives their digital lives in a world which is completely under their control. Yeah, so there is no realistic communism as long as we're on physical planets. Yeah, it's impossible. Communism doesn't work in reality. It just works in a real simulation, which is real, but it is realistic that we'll end up there. And then the question, of course, is, okay, let's be real. If there ever is a simulation-based species that only lives in a simulation and sustains themselves via automatic, you know, energy generation, you know, you can sustain yourself digitally, whatever way you want. And I'm just going to make a point for digital beings for a moment. Digital beings have one huge advantage, and that is if you want to eat, you know, if you want to get energy as a human, you're very limited. You can't use nuclear energy, you can't use solar energy, you can't use, you know, you can't basically use anything but food and water. That's what the point I'm trying to make. Biological beings are very limited. So once we're digitized, we can use whatever fucking food we want. So we can use a lot of energy sources. We can use traditional food. We can use solar energy. We can use whatever we basically can generate energy. So we're very free. And the point I wanted to make is that once we're in a simulation, the only form that can sustain the simulation is communism. And now that sounds weird, but the moment we do not accept every participant in the simulation as equal, we would have a disadvantage, because we would be limiting compute for certain beings for no reason beyond the reason that some person wants an individual advantage. So if we have democracy during that time, democracy would always lead to an unjust treatment of individuals. So democracy is inherently unfairer than communism in theory. And that is, it has so many, that's why it really boggles the mind that people think that democracy is that the cure-all to everybody's problems, because it isn't. It isn't. It has a lot of pros at the moment, but it also has a lot of significant cons. And at the moment, I would say that a lot of cons are very, very big. And I'm talking about democracy, I'm not talking about freedom. And even freedom has a lot of drawbacks. And now I might sound a bit weird, because, you know, when people say, what? Are you telling me I should be put in jail and I can't move and do what I want? The reality is we already are in a kind of jail, you know. We are in a deterministic human body, which is influenced by things we do not have any control over. And we're basically already in a trap. The illusion of freedom is the biggest, the existence of freedom itself is probably the biggest lie of them all, because there is no such thing as freedom. You're always constrained by physical laws and the biological nature of your body. So there is no true freedom. Even if you have the illusion you're free, you're not actually free. So it's always about a compromise. And I think that freedom itself is it's good, you know. There should be a choice for people, at least in a way. The illusion of choice should be given to everybody. The fact that we couple democracy with freedom is a bit weird, because, you know, there is nothing really free in the world. We would never accept freedom, you know. There is no free market. When the Ukraine got attacked, there was no freedom to leave the country. If you were a man, you had to fight. Democracy has nothing to do inherently with freedom. You can make democracies which are inherently unfree. So I'm not advocating that freedom is bad. I'm advocating that freedom, complete freedom, is bad, and that democracy is not necessarily a theoretical guarantee that you will solve the problems in an efficient way. I think that communism in theory has a lot more long-term game than democracy. Yeah. And you could even argue that dictatorship, okay, now it's getting pretty weird, pretty wild here. I would even argue that dictatorship has a more long-term success rate than if the human bodies remain human bodies than democracy, because I think that human bodies, the way they are now, are not fit to be democratic, you know, voters. That's the problem. I would take, even if the machine itself maybe uses democratic structures internally, I would still want a machine that is a dictatorship led by a machine that has everybody's well-being as a goal over the democracy led by humans. So yeah, even dictatorship is, in my opinion, a theoretically better solution in the long term than democracy. Democracy is really bad, and only because what we see is very bad implementations of dictatorship. You know, we see very, very, very unjust people leading these dictatorships. We see very, I don't even know where the fuck we have to go. Probably we need a key or something. Yeah, that's the problem. We're on autopilot, so I have no idea what we're doing in the game. And now all rooms have been seen. No, I think that a super just dictator, you know, a super just king, whatever, that rules over people in their best interest and is capable to really know what their best interest is, would probably make better decisions than most people for their own lives. You know, most people make terrible lifestyle decisions, and voting is also prone to these terrible decisions. And often you vote for something that doesn't really correlate with what you want at all. That is assuming that the person actually does what you're voting for. The person you're voting for does what she actually says, the person actually says they're gonna do. So it's just so complicated, and which is why I really hate these, you know, statements where people are set in stone on the one is better than the other. It's just that we have terrible implementations of both at the moment, and that democracy has shown historically that it is at least a little bit more consistent in leading to somewhat better lives for the people there compared to the other structures at the moment. So yes, at the moment probably we don't have a better alternative, but that doesn't mean we should stop looking for one or discard others that could replace it in the long term. Yeah, and then of course there's the perspective of progress and the perspective of human well-being. And for example, China is a great example for communism that is actually probably pretty good in the long term for most people there, because they can actually implement laws which we have not at the moment, which are definitely the right play. The problem is more that the people who are leading the country are not competent enough to only make good decisions, but they can enforce good decisions on people which would never stand a chance here. Because people then go and gloat, my freedom, my freedom. Yeah, but should your fucking child be able to gamble online? Or in video games when it's not 18 or 21 or whatever the legal age would be? Should your child be able to? Probably not, but you know, we're infringing on their freedom if we don't let them. And the problem is that we are really slow in adapting to these problems. I mean, alcohol, for example, we said, yeah, sure, we're going to make it, you know, minors are not going to be allowed to drink, whatever. Casinos are going to be for majors, whatever. But the problem is we are so slow in reacting to new stuff. You know, like Genshin Impact, for example, is a game, I think, in some countries that doesn't even have an age restriction or very, very low age restriction. And contains gambling, you know. It's like, it is literally a game where you can spend real money to make no real money. And I'm from Germany. And what do we do in Germany? We do something very, very nice. And the argument goes, if you can't win real money, it's not gambling. Like, that's the dumbest shit I've ever heard. Is actually, okay, you can only lose real money by gambling, so it's not gambling. It's such a dumb argument. And that just shows how fucking stupid the entire, you know, juristic system can be when it comes to new problems. And that's where it's great when you have the possibility as a state to actually implement rules which would be ruled against by the incompetent majority. Because if China's leader are only 10% better than the average human being in making decisions, they still would make better decisions on average. You know? So, which democracy cannot, they cannot make these decisions because the majority has to be better, you know? The majority has to make the better decisions, but the majority is 10% worse. So, that moment, communism with almost, you know, a little bit of dictatorship at the lead, can make, you know, I'm saying communism, but it's, you know, China's way of, it's not really hard-baked into one model, you know. They have a strong leadership with a lot of influence on the people, and that's what it is, basically. You can give it whatever fucking name you want, but the reason is, if they are 10% better than the average person making decisions, then it's better than democracy, unfortunately. So that's unfortunately it's very simple when you think about it. Yeah, unless of course democracy makes people that are very smart rise to the top that can manipulate others. But so far we had a lot of examples where this basically leads to complete clusterfuck leadership, like, I don't know, I want to say Trump, or, you know, maybe Bush or whatever. But they are definitely examples of where democracy leads to very incompetent leadership. Yeah, and where also people are stupid, because Trump says a lot of dumb shit, and he's probably kind of, you know, he's not stupid, but he has a lot of dumb ideas, at least. And that also showed me that a lot of people, just because they think he's dumb, don't listen to anything he says. I'm pretty sure Trump had a lot of good ideas too, among all these dumb ideas. So that's the problem. People, once they label somebody as stupid, they stop listening, even though the person might say something smart. And even more so, a dumb person a person perceived as dumb might say something very, very smart, which is then labeled as dumb because they said it, which is incredibly stupid to do, but happens all the fucking time. So if you know somebody's stupid, you're biased. You're biased. Oh my god, that guy's an idiot. If Trump's saying it, it must be wrong. You know, it's like the same. If Elon Musk is saying it, it might be maybe true. You know, Elon Musk says dumb shit, Trump says dumb shit, and sometimes Trump says good shit, you know. Of course, the ratio is maybe lower, but sometimes there might be wrong intentions with, you know, true statements behind them. I mean, Trump might have said a lot of true things with the wrong intentions, but that doesn't make them less true. You know, it's just like you really have to keep an open mind. Yeah, so it's very different. It's like if you listen to XQC obviously is not the most educated person, but it's also obviously not the dumbest person. But he says a lot of dumb shit, but he also says a lot of good shit, you know? It's like it's a mixture of the two. And you really have to know when he's talking shit and when he isn't, and you don't have to be biased, you know? Just because he once said really dumb shit doesn't mean everything else he says is stupid. Yeah, so it's, you know, it's very important to keep that in mind when you listen to people. For example, if I say a lot of smart stuff, that doesn't mean that my next sentence is going to be full of shit. It might, you know. I mean, I have a human brain, and human brains tend to say shit from time to time, no matter who you are. Maybe everything we say is shit because maybe our core assumptions are pretty bullshit, and one day we'll wake up and be like, oh my god, the smartest persons on earth were actually so fucking dumb. Incredible. We should just have listened to the dumbest ones. Okay, so we're fucking hard stuck. I don't know where we need to go. I have no idea where the portals are. Do we have the keys? I don't know. It's so fucking annoying. Once you've explored the entire area. Did we do all of them? We didn't, right? Do we have any keys? Do we have keys? Any keys in the chat? I don't have any keys, right? I don't even know where you would look them up. Oh wait, we have relics here. Epic relic, a white key, the pearl key. But did we open the pearl thing? Okay, one of them is below us. I'm just gonna double check. Just gonna double check every location. It's actually a simple problem once you don't talk about democracy and all that stuff. Yeah, you should also never devalue, you know, just because I'm trash talking democracy. I'm not saying it didn't do a lot of good shit for us, you know. I'm not trash talking it inherently. I'm just saying that it's not the best solution, and we really need to keep an open mind for alternatives, you know, and improvements, especially improvements. Maybe alternatives is a weird way to say it, but improvements. You know, the system is rigged, and it's rigged in a way that's inherently correlated to the system we're using at the moment. It's not like you don't need to be, you know, a conspiracy theorist to see that the system is rigged in a way that is inherent, you know. It's not even in a malicious way. It's just a fact, you know. You always go like, there's always this, you know, perception of, you know, the perception of, you know, conspiracy, but conspiracy can completely be baseless, and sometimes it's not a conspiracy, it's just, you know, stating the facts. I thought we were dead, and I was really pissed. It's amazing we didn't die all this time, probably because we have the relic that gives us more HP on the chest, right? No, we don't even have that. Wait, what the fuck? Oh, we do. Okay, so we removed one of his chains. When we need another key. Fuck me, I guess. I don't know which key it is. It should probably be in a purple room. Yeah, and don't worry, we don't only do political and philosophical streams or whatever on stream. For the most time, we just play games and maybe don't even talk that much about other stuff. But that's not true, it's probably 50%. I'm gonna be honest, there might be games where we don't talk at all about those things. But as soon as the game gets a bit more repetitive, we're gonna be probably dabbling into these types of conversations from time to time. But of course, I'm always glad to, I'm always happy to, you know, also answer questions or, you know, debate stuff, as long as the debate remains civil and constructive, you know. Yeah, so it should be constructive, you know. I really hope that that it stays the way it is, where people mostly either don't say anything or just, you know, when they say something, they have something to add, or, you know, they want to ask something or whatever. You know, I like to be called out wrong, because every time somebody calls me out wrong and I can, you know, then find out I was actually wrong, I'm really happy, because every time that happens, I learned something. You know, whenever you accept that you're wrong, is the moment you have learned something new. And whenever you don't get called out, or you don't accept this, it as, you know, new, as right, I mean, you don't learn anything, and you basically just reinforced yourself. You know, it's like it's a very, oh cool, I think we found the way. Yeah, so what I'm doing here is a positive self-reinforcement, basically. As long as nobody calls at me out for being an idiot. Which I would really appreciate, if there is an actual reason to do so. I really would like to learn something. Because all I'm doing is rearranging information in my brain. Which basically everything we do is, but, you know, now we come full circle and we dab back into the origins of the conversation. Okay, so now we just have to go to the left. How likely is it that we're gonna win the next fight? Considering we can't heal anywhere anymore. Sorry, it's not that likely. Oh wait, you can double tap? That's cool. Oh, I remember those. They're really 8s. Wait, did we actually die? Them? That was so dumb. That was so dumb. Yep, I deserve to die. That's pure greed. It's your brain. Oh my god, 85,000? What the fuck did we actually do? I didn't even see how much gold we had. I guess PogChamp. Okay, now we can, of course, take this one. Highest priority ever, and now it's very difficult because we have a 37k, and I would like to invest it into something which is pretty good, like, for example, this one. It's pretty nice. It's pretty nice. Or XP. I think XP is going to be better for us overall. And now we could probably also take this one. I like to level the ones which don't have that many levels because it's realistic to max them out without actually increasing the inflation too much. We're at 3,500 at the moment. Yeah, so that would be pretty nice. Yeah, I'm just gonna check if there is a new message or something. Okay, so as soon as my girlfriend's home, we're gonna be eating, so the stream might end pretty abruptly, but we're gonna probably not even continue it on stream. So this stream is gonna have an open end, probably. Because like I said, once we are doing New Game Plus, we're not doing a new boss, which we did on stream just now. It's more of the same, you know, it's like, there is not a lot of... If it's not too new, I don't mind also doing it off stream partially, you know. It's just when it's something I really want to share or, you know, document or whatever, I'm definitely gonna stream it. But yeah, like the first playthrough or whatever. But New Game Plus is basically, it is basically just, you know, a time waster. I mean, in a good way, in a sense of we can play the game some more, but in a bad way, maybe that it's not as engaging as the first time around, and which is why I'm okay with not showing the entire way. It depends on the game, of course. If you're playing Nier Automata or whatever, New Game Plus is probably very different, and you should probably not even call it New Game Plus next time if you make a game, because people are going to be very, very confused as to why they probably missed half of the game if they don't play it. Yeah, that I think is a cool, you know, it's a gimmick. It's a gimmick, but it's not a good gimmick. It's a gimmick that probably has led to a lot of people wrongfully missing out a bunch of content in Nier Automata, and then they're like, I don't get it. Why do people like this game so much? The ending was pretty stupid. Is there gonna be a part 2? No, but really, it's like Nier Automata is really unfortunate if you don't play the second half of it, because that's when the game basically becomes what it is. You know, it's like you really need the full picture to enjoy Nier Automata. I think the first half is fun and all, but the real brilliance comes later on. What is this shit? The good news is we can actually fight the boss immediately. The bad news is we took a lot of unnecessary damage. Yeah, the music in the game is really cool. I think some areas might have a problem with the music being too catchy, and thus too repetitive, because it's really, you know, these catchy tunes where this one doesn't have it, but there are other ones where after a while you're like, okay, I've heard this one before and I would really like to not listen to it 10,000 times, because it's not background music then, it's like more, you know, foreground music. And that's okay for a moment, you know, but if you're like in an area for, I don't know, a few hours, you're like, okay, sure, I get it, it's catchy and all, but I don't want to have my head explode after the stream. And also one of the reasons why a lot of soundtracks, you know, are not listened to in the same fashion that normal music is made, because normal music is made to be foreground music in many cases. There are, of course, this ambient stuff, whatever, but there's also a lot of, you know, stuff that's made to be listened to, you know, as a, you know, main focus. You know, you're not focused on, for example, if you're watching a movie and you want to listen to the dialogue, you better not make the music so good that nobody wants to listen to the dialogue, you know. It should be good in the purpose it needs to serve. In this game, sometimes I have the feeling that the music tries to be the star and not the support. You know, the supporting cast, which it should be in most cases. I'm kind of proud of that one. Never used the ability. The reason for that is simple, because I don't want to go in another class and think that I can just, you know, evaporize every projectile by just pressing one button, because that would be very annoying to relearn that. That's very unfortunate. Oh, cool. Fuck. You can easily kill us. Wait, why are we making so much money? We have nothing? It makes sense, we just leveled it once. In general, we're making a lot of money. And I don't know why. When I played this area off stream, it felt like we didn't make any money. We died the moment we talked about money. I guess we deserve it. She really looks blue. Okay, we're level 13. I'd probably call it quits at level 14, although our max is level 15. I really like this one because it adds some good base crit on the weapons. Yeah, the gilded unfortunately does not increase gold, at least at the lower levels of synergy or unity I think. Yeah, unity. Okay, so what are we gonna do? I mean, probably we have like maybe 10 more minutes at most, probably more, like 5. So I would expect the stream to basically end any minute now. So it's like there is an invisible timer is running. That is my girlfriend coming home and me immediately eating. And I'm very hungry, so this time I'm probably not gonna make her wait all too long. Yeah, so get ready for me saying goodbye to you no matter what is happening in the game. Okay. That's great. Just want to say he's gonna dash. I mean, in theory, we can even switch up the burdens after this. We don't need to. We don't need to stick to them for New Game Plus Plus. But like I said, I really am going to decide New Game Plus Plus after I have a feel for how steep the progression is going to get after every single run. Because HP wise, the enemies are getting kind of tanky, and you know me, I don't like my enemies too tanky. I like them high damage, low HP. That's how I like my game. And they are definitely high damage, but not really that. They're on the, you know, they're just squishy enough that it's fun. But should they take double the amount of hits, I would probably consider it not fun anymore. But it's basically already pretty close to what I would consider my personal limit for HP in such a game. The simpler the combat system is from, what do you do with the button press perspective, less HP I expect the enemies to have. Elden Ring with a lot of tanky enemies would be fucking boring. We'd just keep pressing the button over and over again. And the only reason why it's not boring with the bosses is because the star of the show is the enemy, and you evade his, his attacks. This seems super easy with this class, but maybe it's it's not really that easy. This room definitely is harder because we can just abuse our movement. Yeah, this is gonna be our death. Yeah, really bad. I'm not proud of that one. I hate when they spawn in there. They have iframes where you can still see them. But where the fuck is the? Oh my god. Yeah, we're dead. There is no way we're gonna win this. Oh wait, oh, he doesn't even flinch? Why doesn't he even flinch? That's fucking annoying. I didn't think he would kill us actually. Oh, that's great. That means we can do a farming run with this one. Do we even want to do a farming run? I mean, just just one more here and we're done, This one is so expensive, which is insane to me how expensive they are actually. I think 82 armor is actually enough. What we should do once is let ourselves get hit and see how much we absorb. If we are at the 40 whatever percent we should be. Wait, can we see that somewhere? Yeah, 8% more armor. No, not really. Increases armor's max blocks. I don't know how much it is. So we should probably block like 40% or whatever. So let's find it out. Find out how much. No, it has to be an enemy that has a single strong attack, not a lot of weak ones, because they don't really. They might scale it differently. Might have a lower damage value because they're more likely to hit. Yeah, this one is a perfect example. Let's see how much does it do. 89, 69, 7. Okay, we're not. Okay, we just have to look if the number is smaller than 82. It was pretty easy to figure out, actually. Yeah. Right, that's how armor in the game works. I guess. Maybe. Maybe not. Yeah. So, the moment we see an 82 there, we are under armored and we should level. That is really good. Yeah, this is gonna be a very chill farm run and there's almost no risk involved. We could even go for this one. And it might even be good to do so. I think it's good because it's gonna help us with, really a lot. We have less HP, but we're gonna get healed the entire time. Alright, I forgot. We get disarmed. Wait, we didn't? Oh, shit. I thought we did it. By that I mean I didn't pay attention. I have no idea if we did or not. I believe the game, obviously. Yeah, I'm still not sure if I like that some of them are really like, you know, very homing and others are just like, yeah, I'm just gonna fly straight. Yeah, I think they should be consistent because it just is not good game design when you think about it. That sometimes the same projectile will behave completely differently, making it very annoying to predict what's gonna happen. I mean, you don't need to make every projectile the same, you know, but when they look very samey, you would expect them to behave kind of the same. And then again, they are throwing fireballs which don't do anything. These have fireballs that fly straight, and they have fireballs which fall down. Yeah, so maybe it's not that much of a problem because they don't do it like that in other cases either, so it is kind of consistently inconsistent. Yeah, whenever we find this room, we're done. That means as much as we can just go to Axis Monday and do whatever the fuck we want. I'm just gonna check again if she wrote something new. She should be there any moment. And unless she doesn't find a parking lot. Might be this is Sunday evening. Always very difficult to find proper stationment. Oh my god, I'm so dumb. Wait, that also... Wait, can we spin kick when we're disarmed? I would assume no, but... I also didn't read the description. No, never mind, we can. Maybe we can. I don't know. Might have been so slow that we can try it again. Yeah, I think it's time to say goodbye. So, everybody, thank you a lot for watching. Sorry if it was a little bit too political today. But like always, have a very nice rest of your Sunday, rest of your week. I will always try to do an English Sunday from now on, but no guarantees. So it might actually be very rare that we stream in English, but I'm really trying to make it